now that we know how to graph linear functions, let's talk about the behavior. Behavior is another word for what the graph looks like. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about two important aspects of the behavior of linear functions. The first aspect we're going to talk about is called slope, and slope is just another word for the steepness of the graph. And then the second component we're going to talk about is called the X-Intercept. And the X-Intercept is the point on any function where the function crosses the x-axis, which for this graph here you can see it's right there. But we're going to talk about both of those and how to find them. So slope is the steepness of a function, and an easy way to find it is if you have a function in the form like this where you only have one x and nothing else is multiplied by x, you know that the slope is going to be the coefficient of x, meaning the number that is multiplied by x. So in this function, f of x equals 3x minus 2, slope is equal to 3, because there's nothing else multiplying by x. And if you look, you can see for every one unit that we go in the x direction, we go 1, 2, 3 in the y direction. And so that's another way of thinking about slope, is the movement in the y direction divided by the movement in the x direction. So that means we can also determine slope visually if we just pick a point. Pick a point on the function, we know this point is 1x, 1y. And if we go over another point x and then count how many points up in y or down in y, then let's see, 1, 2, 3. See right there? And so we know that it moved 1 in the x direction, 3 in the y direction, so our slope is equal to 3. That's another way of figuring it out. And so for figuring out the x-intercept, all we have to do is set the function to equal 0. So why we do that is because the x-intercept is always when the function is equal to 0. See, the y value is always equal to 0 when the function crosses the x-axis. So we just set f of x equal to 0, and then we can just solve. So we're gonna add 2 to both sides, add 2, so those cancel, and then we have 2 is equal to 3x, and then we're gonna divide both sides by 3, and this gives us 2/3 is equal to x. So what this means is that the x-intercept is 2/3, and if you were to write that in point form, it would be 2/3, 0. And that is our x-intercept for this example. In this example, we're given a function and we are asked to find the slope and the x-intercept. So let's start with the slope. We have, well, let's just take the function. So I'm going to write slope here. And let's take the function and simplify it so that we can understand it better. So let's just multiply this out, in other words. So 1/3 times x, negative 1/3 times x is negative 1/3 x. And then negative 1/3 times positive 6 gives us negative 2. Okay, and so this is more understandable because we just have one quantity of x here, and there's no parentheses. But for our slope, what is our slope always in a linear function? It's just this number right here, the coefficient of x, also known as what is multiplying by x. So our slope we know is negative 1/3. So that is easy. That's our solution for our slope. And when we're trying to find the x-intercept, what do we have to do? Well, we just have to set this whole equation equal to 0. Or the whole function, excuse me. And then it becomes an equation that we can solve. But, so if we set f of x equal to 0, equals negative 1/3 x minus 2. So do you see how we do that? Right, we're just, because the x-intercept is y equals 0, always, right? Because it's always on this line, always on the x-axis. We're letting f of x equal 0, and since f of x is also equal to this, we can write 0 equal to that. And then that is what allows us to solve for x here and find where exactly what the x is when the function is equal to 0. And afterwards we'll graph this to check to see if this x-intercept is correct. But let's go ahead and solve it. So let's add 2 to both sides. So we have 2 is equal to negative 1/3 x. Okay, so if we want to get rid of the negative 1/3 x, we just need to multiply both sides by negative 3, because that will cancel the negative and it will cancel the 3 on the bottom, and we'll just be left with x. So multiply this side by negative 3, and that gives us negative 6 on that side. Negative 6 is equal to x. So the x-intercept is negative 6. And if we want to check this, the easiest way to do that is to graph it. So what I'm going to do is just write a bunch of points from the function, and then we're going to graph the equation or the function and see if these two, if the slope and the x-intercept are true. Well, let's try x equals 0. So for x is equal to 0, we have 0 minus 2. That gives us minus 2 in the y direction. And then let's do 2, or let's do 3, because that'll be easy to calculate. So 3 times negative 1/3 x gives us negative, that gives us negative 1. Negative 2 gives us negative 3. Okay, and then let's do negative 3 now. So negative 3 would give us positive 3 minus 2, and it would give us 1 in the y direction. So I'm just going to go ahead and graph these points. 0, negative 2 is right here. Okay, and then for x is equal to 3, and then y negative 3, so 1, 2, 3 down. Okay, so that's that point. And then for negative 3, or x is equal to negative 3, 1, 2, 3, we have y is equal to 1. Okay, so our x here should be equal to negative 6, and it does not look like it. So I either miscalculated my points or I miscalculated the x-intercept. So let's go ahead and look at this. For 0, if you plug it in 0, that gives you negative 2. That point is correct. For 3 here, that would give you negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So that's correct. And then here, negative 3 times negative 1/3 is positive 1 minus 2 gives us negative 1. Okay, so I just messed up on this point. So just my graph is messed up, not our solution, hopefully. Phew. Okay. So we know this point is correct. I'll just read to the points here. So we have 0, -2, and then we have 3, 1, 2, 3, -3, 1, 2, 3. And then we have, for -3x, we have -1. So 1, 2, 3, -1. Okay, that looks more like a straight line too. So there we go. And then, if you'll notice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It crosses the x-axis at roughly -6. So we know this is correct, and our slope for every one, let's try this, for every 1 unit in the x direction, how many y does it go up or down? Well, it goes down very little, so it could be 1/3. And 1/3 over 1, and it goes down. So we know that it is -1/3, possibly. And once again, graphing just helps us to kind of visualize and double check that our algebra is correct. And graphing is not essential, but I would definitely recommend it because it helps us double check our answers. But let's do some more examples. Now that we know how to find the slope and x-intercept of a function, let's see if we can do it all in reverse. So here we're asked to find a function with a slope of -4 and an x-intercept of +5. And we're supposed to write it in the form f of x equals mx plus b. So we have the easy part, the slope. We can just write that as our m here, right? Because we know the slope is just the coefficient of x, also known as the number that multiplies by x. So -4 times x. Now, already we have a function that gives us the correct slope. So how do we find an x-intercept? Well, we set the function equal to 0, but how do we find a function, or how do we find the function that has the x-intercept of 5? Well, we need to solve for this extra value, this b value. So what we're going to do is we'll just write plus b for now, and then we know at the x-intercept our function is equal to 0 and our x is equal to 5, right? Because our x-intercept, when finding our x-intercept, we solve for x, but we already know that we want x to be 5. So our x is 5. Let's go ahead and rewrite this. So 0 is equal to -4 times 5, right? Because that's what we want our x value to be based on the problem. And then we have plus b. Now would you look at that? We only have one variable, and we can easily solve this equation. So 0 equal to -4 times 5 is -20 plus b. Now we'll add 20 to both sides. So plus 20 over here. And we have 20 is equal to b. So what does this mean? This means that our b value up here is equal to 20. So we can rewrite the whole function as f of x is equal to -4x plus our b value of 20. And if you wanted to graph this, this would give you a slope of -4 and x-intercept of 5. But let's do another example to get us comfortable with working backwards. So here we have a very similar problem. We're given a slope and an x-intercept, and we're asked to find a function in the form f of x equals mx plus b. So our first step, we can just write our slope as the coefficient of x, or our m value. So slope is 8. If we have 8x in our function, that part of the problem is already done. Now, to find our b value, that will give us the x-intercept of -1/2. All we have to do is set the function equal to 0, right? Because the x-intercept is when y is equal to 0, when the function is equal to 0. So we have 0 on this side, and we know that our x will be -1/2, right? So we have over here equals 8 times our -1/2, and then plus b. So now this is an equation with one variable. We can easily solve it. So what is 8 times -1/2? That gives us -4. So 0 equal to -4 plus b. And let's add +4 to both sides. +4. So we have 4 is equal to b. What this means is we can rewrite our function with this new b value. So f of x is equal to 8x plus b, which is 4. So this is our solution. And if you graph this, it would give you a slope of 8 and an x-intercept of -1/2. Here we have a similar example, except with very large numbers, but we can still do the problem the exact same way. So we have our b value of -11 here. So f of x is -11x. That gives us our slope. And then to find the x-intercept, we have to solve for b, right? So we know that our x is 90 and our f of x is 0. So 0 equals -11 times, what was our x? X was 90, plus our b value. At this point, we're left with a simple equation. So let's simplify this right here. We have, what's -11 times 90? If you pull out your calculator, that is -990. And then plus our b here. If you want to add 990 to both sides, plus 990. So that looks like a 6, but that's a 0. 0. Okay, 990 is equal to b. So we can rewrite the function over here. F of x is equal to -11 x plus our b value, which is 990. So this is our solution for this example.
Hey guys, if this video has been helpful to you, click the link in the description to get access to the complete Easy STEM Algebra 1 system, which includes a textbook, homework, and all of the course videos in order.